The women's group UltraViolet called on CNN to suspend Cuomo and conduct an investigation over his influence of the network's coverage of the governor, something he himself denied on his show. It's the height of hypocrisy for Chris to have his brother on there for the good news but doesn't have him on to discuss the bad news, the insider told Fox News. It's laughable for him to be so judgmental of other people for their wrongdoings, and he's sitting there enabling and coming up with excuses for someone with sexual misconduct allegations. The Post's report on the Cuomo strategy sessions came on the one-year anniversary of the CNN anchor's infamous prop comedy skit he conducted with his brother. Chris Cuomo was mocking the governor's nasal swab COVID test, using overly sized Q-tips to demonstrate how big of a nose his brother has. Cuomo was previously barred from covering the New York governor, a rule that was apparently lifted by the network at the beginning of the pandemic and later re-implemented as the Democrat became engulfed in a tsunami of political scandals. There were critics who called out the conflict of interest at the time, but the playful banter between the Cuomo brothers was widely embraced by fans of the governor, many of them being members of the media as news organizations praised the Democrats' response to the pandemic and obsessed over his daily press briefings. Meanwhile, a controversy was brewing over the Cuomo administration's apparent undercounting of COVID nursing home deaths in New York, something that was later confirmed by New York Attorney General Letitia James in January of this year. The undercounting came after Governor Cuomo's controversial order requiring nursing homes to accept COVID-positive patients to prevent overflow at hospitals, which critics believe is responsible for the deaths of thousands of elderly New Yorkers. The governor rescinded the order on May 11, 2020, after it was signed 6 weeks prior. The New York Times reported that the cover-up of the state's COVID nursing home deaths was tied to the governor's ambition of releasing a premature memoir boasting his response to the pandemic, which came out in October. However, the CNN anchor himself was implicated in another scandal that emerged out of Albany. Earlier this year, it was revealed that Chris Cuomo was a beneficiary of the Cuomo administration as he received prioritized COVID testing in the early months of the pandemic as ordinary New Yorkers struggled. A top New York physician was even sent to his house in the Hamptons to conduct such testing for visits that often lasted hours. The younger Cuomo was ultimately diagnosed with the virus back in March 2020. It is unknown if the positive COVID test he took was funded by himself, his employer, or by New York taxpayers. Also in April, the CNN anchor bizarrely staged his own re-emergence from the basement of his Hamptons home after his outdoor scuffle was widely reported.